Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, networking can take so many different shapes and sizes, can happen online, can happen offline, and today's guest is really going to dissect what networking can and should look like and how to get the most out of it. He is at the forefront of networking, not only from an in-person group perspective, but he's really being part of the change in the digital era and merging both the digital world and the physical world. So let me tell you about today's guest. His name is Bill Mueller. Bill is the CEO and co-founder of Start a Network and resides in the great state of Texas. For the past several years, Bill has been heavily involved in professional business networking and worked with a programmer to design a program to merge in-person network and social media networking, and has been managing a local networking group ever since. Later, Bill teamed up with one of his fellow networking members that has extensive experience in IT and project management, and the two set out to revolutionize the networking experience, which I think is something that we all want to see happen. The concept has morphed from a platform designed specifically to manage professional networking groups to a complete group management platform that can manage groups of any size. There are so many components to Start a Network's platform, but it is the custom public-facing websites, exceptional back office experience, and they also have a mobile app with some AI integration. So much good stuff that we're going to get into today with Bill. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Bill Mueller. All right, Bill, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Heck yeah. So I talked a little bit about it. Networking is something that we've all either loved or hated, or probably loved and hated along the way. But give us your backstory. How did you fall into all these amazing things that you're doing today?
You know, I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. I just gravitate toward, risk and reward. And I got involved in real estate industry about 10 years ago and went to work for a broker who happened to be my son-in-law. And he lived and preached networking, and he is awesome at it. And because of him, I really started to see the real value of it. Now, I had been in the chamber, decades before that, because I teach martial arts. I was in for that, been at the forefront of several industries, but one network led to another. And I really started in a Christian business networking group. They told me about another networking group that actually a missionary run. It was great. And I got to be great friends with him. I actually went to Thailand and Burma and Cambodia with him. And then from there, I was told about another group that was run by Chad Hennings, who was a defensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's where I met Brian, my co-founder in this business. When I set out and opened my own networking group, he was one of the first persons that I asked to join. At the time, I had no idea he was an IT professional because he was doing basically inspections for homes, and I was the realtor in the group. I had already paid money and had a nice website developed, but what we decided to do together was build a platform so anybody that wanted to host their own networking group could have the management tools to be able to do it effectively.
Yeah, I love that overview, Bill, because it really shows that you've been on all sides of the coin when it comes to networking, not only as someone who is an active part of networking groups, but I think that we're also going to have a conversation here today about managing a networking group, because I think that there's so many different considerations all around. But I think we've got to start with the basics and actually talk about networking, because Bill, you've seen it in your own personal career, how much it's benefited you, whereas a lot of entrepreneurs probably dread the networking events. I'm like you, I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce before. I've been a member of BNI, was one really impactful group for me, which is really intent-based. People are there for a very clear reason. Talk to us about the different types of networking groups and how you have found that networking has enhanced not only your life, but of course your businesses.
Well, I too was a member of BNI. I think it's a great program. And I also was involved, like I say, in a local chamber, and then got involved in Christian business networking. And again, one networking group led to another. Your territory expands. Basically, you get to know a lot more people. I was getting real estate deals because of it. And then I realized just even how much more advantage there was to managing the group than just being a member of it, because you're the first person that gets to talk to these people. And even after, if they don't join, you still have formed a relationship. So there's tons of advantages to actually managing the network. But I have met some of my best friends. It's totally changed my life, to be honest. So like I said, I went on a mission trip with one of them, the best networker I've ever met. His name's Sandy Anderson, and never met a stranger. He can go up to total strangers. 5 minutes later, I'll see him praying with the person, or I've seen him defuse situations just because he's just so outgoing, and never met a stranger, like I say. And through these relationships, you can really build strong relationships. One of the things that I incorporated in my network is I tried to get the spouses involved, especially in social activities, because a lot of times the spouses will be your bigger actually purchasers and so forth. So it's very important to get as many people as you can involved. A lot of times I think it's important to have some kind of mission statement, certainly, but even maybe a charity that brings you all together as well.
Yeah, I love that because it really shows how many different types of networking settings you've been in as well. Because, I mean, when you and I are talking about BNI, for example, for listeners that aren't aware of BNI, that's where literally on a weekly basis, you're saying, I have a referral for Bill. Here's exactly who it is. And Bill will say, I closed that deal. Here's exactly how much it was worth. Whereas so many of these other examples that you and I can both give is that maybe it isn't so purposeful or intentional, or some of those settings, maybe it's very structured. Some of them, they're not so structured. I love hearing you talk about bringing your spouses on those socials. When I think about especially the dynamics between couples, so often, Bill, it seems like women are the glue of these social types of relationships. So I think it's powerful to talk about these different ways. Talk to us about some of those, having been inside both of them. What are the practical applications of, let's say, having structure versus a less structured networking group?
That's a real good question, because there's a lot of people that shy away from things that are too structured, and there's a lot of people that want that structure. Otherwise, they're not going to attend on a regular basis. So you've got to find a happy medium. There's some outfits that you miss a couple of times and you're out. And quite honestly, some of them might babysit the different networks and not give enough autonomy or control to the individual that's, basically overseeing the group, facilitating the networking. I like to keep mine light. We usually start out with something funny video, something off a YouTube clip or whatever, just to break the ice. We want people that come into our networking group to feel at home as quickly as possible. We want them to know that they're cared about, and although we're there for business, we also want them to know that we're there to have a good time, and we're there to really develop some strong relationships.
Yeah. And along those lines of relationships, Bill, I feel like so many people, they don't know where to network. Where with regards to the industry of, should I be networking with people inside my own industry? Should I be networking with so-called competitors or shoulder industries? Should I just be networking with entrepreneurs in general? What's your take on that, and how we can really blend and learn and grow from all of the different opportunities?
I think you network with whoever and whenever you can, but complementary industries are the best. You'll see even within a large group, usually it will break into subgroups. For example, a realtor who's usually probably the most sought after person in the group, because they have a lot of people they can share. Person needs a plumber, electrician or whatever. They have to know those people, because they refer them to people that are purchasing houses or want to fix their house up prior to selling it. But like a realtor might want to network with a mortgage lender, a real estate inspector, a financial advisor, a credit repair person. People that have like customers is really a key to having these small, tight-knit groups. A lot of times our people get together and they may host a seminar. We had recently a realtor, a financial person, a lender, several of them get together and do a seminar for investors. So we'll find that a lot of times our group is very close, but it will segment off and do different things together and, make that even a stronger. People that do things in numbers, obviously, there's strength in numbers, and they can provide more opportunities for people.
Yeah, I love the way you answered that. I want to call that out for listeners right there because it's such a powerful takeaway from someone who is literally a professional networker. Is don't just think about the person and their industry, think about the people that they're frequently talking to. So I love that plumber example because those types of B2C companies, they all have the same local service customers. So I think it's a really powerful and important consideration. Along those lines though, Bill, I do want to give you some credit as someone who has really extensive networks, is that networking is one thing. Shaking a hand and meeting someone is one thing, but building and most importantly, maintaining a relationship is the most important thing. What are some of your tips and insights and strategies on that side of the coin?
Well, everybody's different in regards to that. As long as I've been networking, I still find it easier to develop long relationships than just go up to a total stranger. It's something that you have to get used to, and it's an important part of it. But if you look at it, that these people are here for the same reason that I am. They want to see their business prosper. I want to help their business prosper. And you're going to do that through relationships, and people are aware of that. So there's really nothing to be afraid of to go up to somebody that's a total stranger, because if you're at a networking event, you know that they're there for the very same reason. And most importantly is you can't be in it just for yourself. You've got to be willing to take time and really do your best to share other people that you know, like, and trust. And that's how you get to know, like, and trust people, is through building relationship. I don't expect anybody to refer me just because I'm in their networking group. I want them to refer me because they know I'm going to take good care of their client, and I'm going to really look after them and make sure that that I don't embarrass, number one, the person that referred them to me.
Yeah. And I have to, this is the elephant in the room. I have to ask it on behalf of listeners who are probably hearing both of us talk about networking, Bill, and they're just like, well, you guys like talking. You guys have been at it for a while. What about for me? I'm an introvert. You gave that example of Andy, who has never met a stranger. A lot of people say I'm like that. I love talking to people. I love conversations. But Bill, I'm sure you've seen them at events as well. All the introverts who are a little bit more hesitant to just jump in. What's your advice with regards to the different types of personalities? Because ultimately we can all network, but how does maybe the approach or the thought process differ?
Well, the approach for the people coming in, I mean, they've got to have the, how should I say, the desire to really want to meet people. But the culture that you develop in your networking group is what's going to make it easy for somebody that's an introvert to go ahead and join your group. It's very important that you have an inviting group. You have a group that goes out of their way and lets the person know that they're a valuable contribution and what they said meant a lot to them. Because I think it's the group's responsibility to make that person feel at home, because we all have different personalities. It's going to be much more difficult for some, but I see people come out of their shell, and people that were scared at the beginning and laughing and having a good time. And again, the culture of the group, not only how they treat the person coming in and leaving, but what happens in the networking group. Do we allow, is it really strict where it's formal? That makes it much harder for the people that are introverts. But if you keep it loose and you cut some jokes and you have a good time while you're doing it, and there's no reason you shouldn't. I think it lends itself to helping these type of people that are introverts.
Yeah, I love that that's the way that you took that answer, Bill, because I do want to start shifting gears into, obviously, for all of us entrepreneurs, we have the opportunity to be those group organizers. We have the opportunity to create that culture of invitation and welcoming people in. Talk to us about some of those ways, because I would argue that for so many of us entrepreneurs, being a connector increases our value in the marketplace, which is why I'm so excited to hear about what you've got going on behind the scenes at Start a Network. But before we get there, what are some of those ways that we, as people who are connectors, people who bring people together, those of us who want to start a networking group, how can we create that culture where we invite people in?
Great question. I think it's so beneficial, number one, to start a networking group because you have so many advantages. I kind of mentioned them before, but number one, you're seen as the expert. You're seen as the go-to person if you're the one that's facilitating the group. You're seen as the person that somebody wants to get to know because they feel like you have the best opportunity to share their experience and their skills and benefits. But as a connector, I think it's really important that you take it upon yourself to share out, not just in the group. There's a lot of groups that give a shout out to somebody that helped them with a deal within the group. But those people already knew it for the most part. So I want to see people actually give a shout out on social media. And that's why I'm so adamant about merging social media and the actual networking group itself, because, you know, although we may have 20 people in the networking group that we can say, hey, so-and-so gave me a lead and I closed it. If everybody in that group shared that, now maybe thousands of people could see that same thing and that person could get so much more exposure. So I think it's kind of the responsibility of the person that's running the group to do their best to make sure not only are leads shared, but people know that they did a good job and who it was that did a good job. And it literally takes 10 seconds, 15 seconds, especially with Start a Network app. I can do it in 5 seconds. I can post about somebody in my network, a member, and tell them that they did an incredible job for me and they ought to use them too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Bill, that to me is the most fascinating part of what you do in a networking sense. Now we're talking about social media, which goes against the traditional way that we all view networking. I think most people picture the types of Chamber of Commerce environments that we've talked about here today. Take us to the Start a Network approach to it. How do you blend the two? I love that real life example of the social media shout outs, but what does networking look like digitally?
Well, digitally, I too, I guess I should start out to say that I believe very strongly in in-person networking, but I think we can take it to a whole new level when we add social media to it. Number one, we can touch so many more people. So we have a mobile app for one thing, and with the punch of a button, I can share somebody's profile that's in my group, not just contact information, but their whole profile. So someone can go to their profile and look them up, and I can do it with the punch of a button. Then all I have to do is write on the top, hey, this guy did a great job for me when my sink needed repairing. Please give him a call when you have any plumbing needs. We have so many things. We've incorporated AI into our system so people can also use AI for content. And what that does is that's going to pull them up on the internet as well. So when people do Google searches, they're going to find them as well. So if other people are sharing their information, that can come up there as well. So not just social media, but it comes up in browser searches, and we give the people opportunity to be exposed to thousands of people that they wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. They would have simply been exposed to the people in their group. And that's great because that's where the majority of your business is going to come from, because they're the ones who know your heart. But I think even more important than that is the amount of numbers that you can touch to help your fellow member.
Yeah, it makes total sense, especially because I guess with my sales and marketing hat on, I so frequently think of that magic number 7. And I don't know if this is a scientific number or not, but a lot of sales experts always say that it takes 7 touch points to make a sale. And really, what I'm hearing from you today is not with regards to sales, but with regards to just frequency of those connections, not only make new connections, but more importantly, the frequency in which we see our fellow group members and the frequency in which we show up in these groups. Bill, from your perspective, I'm fascinated by what your side of the world looks like because you are a professional networker by trade. How much of your week is networking? Like when we talk about successfully networking as business owners, as entrepreneurs, how often are we doing it? How often are we going to groups? How much time does it take in between those meetings? Give us some insights into the life of Bill the Networker.
Well, it really depends on what you consider networking. And I think therein lies the whole key to networking is if you have the mindset that anybody that you talk to, don't look at them with dollar signs on their forehead, but look at them as a potential longtime friend. Longtime friends are going to bring you business. And I think that's the real key. How many hours I spend in it is not as much as I used to. I'll be honest, we're launching this product on February 15th. So I'm working about 14 hours a day trying to get everything done. It's just amazing everything there goes into a product this magnitude. But I do think that you're always down. It's like in sales, they say, always be closing, ABC. Well, here we should always be networking. Everything you do, every time you talk to someone on the phone, it's a networking opportunity. And the way to do that is to be a good listener. If you're always talking, you're not going to really find out what that person cares about. And until you have that kind of insight, you're probably not going to get leads from them.
Yeah, I appreciate those insights from you, especially because I also love throwing a little bit of shade on that ABC analogy that we all hear, always be closing, because so much of it really does come down to relationships. And I think you just revealed one of the magic ingredients of networking, which is that strong concept of listening. So much of networking, we're worried about our own elevator pitch. We're worried about what the other person thinks of us. But so frequently we find that the more we listen, the more people naturally like us. Bill, along those lines, what types of questions? Do you keep it strictly business when it comes to networking conversations, at least off the bat? Or are there different questions that you turn to? Do you have kind of an opener that you leverage when you're at new networking groups? What are some of your insights there?
I really believe that it's important to get to know the person before the business. Now, if they're coming into the networking group, I might hear about their business first, but they're not going to know you really care if you're just talking business. So it's important to find out what's important to them. Ask, hey, tell me about yourself. We know the sweetest sound to anybody's ear is their own name. So it's important to call them by their own name. Obviously, I didn't make that up. That's from a very famous person, and I'm drawing a blank to that right now. But it's really important to make a strong effort to remember the name of the person that came into your group. Call them by their name. You get a warm fuzzy by that. Ask how their family's doing, And once you've broken the chain where they believe that you don't only care about their business and the potential business they bring to you, the opportunities that they can bring you are much greater.
Yeah, really important advice there. I'm just going to echo one thing you said because I think there's so much brilliance in it, even though it sounds so casual, is the types of questions you're asking, Bill, and the ones that you've used as examples here. As someone who, I started in the Chamber of Commerce when I was 22 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. All these people were way more experienced than me. And I'll never forget one question that someone asked me once upon a time. The guy, he owned a local video production company up in Massachusetts. And he said to me, "How do you spend your time?" And I remember I really enjoyed that question. When I went home, I was like, why did he ask me that instead of just asking, what do you do? And it really gave me the opportunity and the leeway with such a broad question to tell him what I wanted to talk about. It allowed me to choose the very topics that are near and dear to my heart. And that turned into one of my longest standing business relationships when I was still in Boston. So I love those open-ended questions. I want to come back a little bit to us as the group managers, Bill, because with that in mind, I'm going to, full disclaimer, you've for sure inspired me to take this more seriously here in 2024 and commit to it. As group managers, how do we get this stuff right? Because there's so many questions as far as member size, as far as how frequently we're going to have meetings, as far as the platform and the structure or lack of structure in which we're going to do it. How do you start to even decide? And I hope part of your answer is going to be, it's an evolutionary process, but where the heck do we even start in getting it right?
Well, it is an evolutionary process, but I would like to help people because they can go to startanetwork.com and scroll down toward the bottom, and there's a free ebook that I've written. It tells people basically how to get a network started, the different types of networks. I mean, there's several hybrid styles right now, but there's three basic ones: a social network, your paid networks, and just kind of a combination of the both. Some meet monthly, some meet weekly. My particular group meets weekly, and my group really wanted that. And the reason they really wanted that is they feel like if you meet monthly and you miss 1 month, one meeting, all of a sudden 2 months had passed by, and these people get to be pretty good friends. They don't want to go 2 months without seeing each other, and they feel like the leads will slow down if they do that. But if they pick up my ebook, it's free to download. They can go there. It talks about all the different styles. You see, I mean, there's literally hundreds of ways you could develop your network, whether it's the different costs, whether it's, for women only, whether it's for specific profession, whether it's a social networking gathering where they typically meet at, cocktail lounges, something like that, or if it's strictly a business, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner. And we all know during COVID that online networking groups got really big. Most of them have tried to phase back to do both. I prefer a hybrid that really utilizes both avenues.
Yeah, I definitely like that idea of hybrid. I think it allows so much room for creativity as well, not just increasing that frequency of us seeing each other, but you get to be creative across the different platforms. Bill, you raised one thing that I don't think we talk about often enough, which is the cost, which is something that I didn't even think to ask you about here today, but thinking about the Chamber of Commerce, BNI, obviously those are memberships and community groups that we pay for. What's your take on that? I've always loved that concept of those who pay attention, but in a networking perspective, I also think about how many great connections I got just from a group of us banding together and say, hey, we are all growing a podcast. Let's do it together. What's your take on cost structures being present or not present whatsoever in networking groups?
We designed Start a Network really so they can do if they want to monetize their group, they can. If they want to get together and just use the communication tools and the public-facing website, they can do that. I'm of the belief that if somebody doesn't have skin in the game, that they're going to take it more lackadaisical. I found that out actually teaching martial arts. I happen to be an 8th degree black belt. I've got just about 60 years of experience in martial arts. And when I would offer it for free, if people didn't feel like it that day, they didn't come. If there was money behind it, and I hate to say that because that should not be their motivation to come. But if they know that they're going to lose the $60 or whatever if they don't come, I didn't deal with that. And there was a lot of frustration, quite honestly, at that time, because when you've given up your night and you have children and so forth, and you've given up that time to be with other people, and they didn't respect that time, then you can't get that time back for your family. You may have given up a child's baseball game because you had to teach that night. I feel the same way about networking groups because people give up their Friday morning or they give up their, Saturday morning, whatever it might be. And if only a few people show up, I think it's not fair to the other people. And so that's one of the reasons I think that. But there's a lot of people that love networking and could literally make a decent living full-time facilitating networking groups. So I think it's an opportunity for them too, and I think it's actually works out to be a good thing for the people that join it. Now, obviously, there's a limit. There's some groups that have gotten way out of hand in what they charge. So there's got to be a balance, and it depends on the type of group too. If I know that I'm working with executives and so forth, you see some of these mastermind groups that are $50,000 a year, and it's maybe 10 phone calls within a year. So it's gotten where you are paying for value, but there's a time where, hey, enough is enough. Let's get realistic about this. We keep ours reasonable, but we have 3 tiers. We have 3 different tiers that they can come in at a plan that gives them more benefits in advertising and so forth. If they're a little tighter for money, they can come in at a very low tier that's very inexpensive. So we try to help them out that way. Everyone, again, there's 1,000 ways that they can put their networking group together. But I certainly don't look down on anybody that monetizes their group, because I think it's an excellent way to make a living. If that's what you love to do and you can help people, you can bring them out of their shell, you can introduce them to people that are going to make a big difference in their business, then you've got a very worthwhile occupation.
Yeah, absolutely. That Bill is speaking to all of you entrepreneurs and you entrepreneurs. If you're thinking about networking as a tool to grow your business, well, for you entrepreneurs, it can absolutely do that. But for you entrepreneurs, there's so much value add. This in and of itself can be a business model for you if you're someone who loves being that connector. That is a ton of value. If you think about, I frequently think about Uber as a platform. What does Uber as a company do? Well, they don't drive people. They don't get driven by people. They are just that connection bridge. And so, Bill, I love the fact that you're highlighting that for listeners. This is a valid business to start in 2024 and beyond. I would actually argue that the opportunity is greater now than ever before, because more and more people are lacking that connection. They're lacking that playground that facilitates networking actually happening. So I love your insights there, Bill. I also love asking guests this question because I never know which direction they're going to take it in. And that is your one piece of advice or takeaway for listeners here today. We talked about so many different concepts, and I'm going to, listeners, in a second, we're going to talk about Bill's free ebook as well as his platform again in a second, so you don't forget those links. But Bill, before we get there, with all the things we talked about, what's your one takeaway that you hope every listener gets from today's episode?
I think it would be, and I didn't say it in these words, but in a nutshell, it's do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You help them, they're going to help you back. It's just natural thing. Hopefully we get to the point where we're going to help others regardless if they help us back or not. But human nature is we're going to take care of the people who took care of us. And so make that the way that you live your life, is make sure that you're doing right by other people, and more than likely, people are going to go out of their way to help you. One thing I'd say to the entrepreneurs is I've been self-employed for 40 years, and I've probably seen, I just can't tell you how many people I've seen that sincerely want to see me succeed. And I found that for business owners, whatever they do, the general public usually wants you to succeed, and they want to feel like they were a part of that. So for what it's worth, that's my take.
Yeah, really powerful advice and words of wisdom. Wherever we are in our business journey, whether you're a wantrepreneur or an entrepreneur, you see those real life insights from Bill. And I would argue, Bill, I'm tooting your horn a lot today, but I genuinely think that networking is the thing that accelerates it. I've not shared this personal anecdote very frequently publicly, but when I started my first business when I was 19, it was a soccer blog. The very first 20 emails that I sent to learn things was to my fellow soccer bloggers. They accelerated my success. Gosh, they probably saved me years of trying to figure this stuff out, because to your last point, they also wanted me to succeed. A rising tide lifts all boats. It's not about all of us getting a slice of the pie. It's about us expanding that pie. So really powerful words of wisdom from you there, Bill. Along those lines, I'm super excited because by the time this episode is airing, listeners, Bill's platform, Start a Network, The 2.0 version of it is already out. So Bill, tell us about Start a Network and drop those links on us for where listeners should go from here.
Well, it's actually going to launch on February 15th. We've formally had launched it before that, but we've made just tremendous changes to it. The way to do it is go to startanetwork.com. You're going to see tremendous changes in the next 2 weeks because everything that we've been doing and we've been working our hearts out is going to start to show up on the platform on the 15th. Okay. And some of the things that our platform does, we have a public facing website. So more than just a communication tool, we have a site that can be picked up for your network on Google and so forth, as well as every one of your members will have a profile. Those two can be picked up by the search engines. So those are two of the key things that you really are important. But with that, we have a communications app. We have an app that you can talk to individuals, you can talk to the groups. And if you're involved in more than one group using our app, you can just click a button and switch to the other group. We've got coming on now activity feeds. So if, let's say we're involved in 3 different groups, we'll get the feed collectively for all of them, or we can turn on just one group and get the feeds for those. And you can talk to, many people that are like-minded like you. I see this thing growing. For example, I've used the example of martial arts, but it's somebody's, maybe they've trained just kind of a broad range of martial arts. And then you've got your people that trained in Okinawa, those people that trained in Japan, those people that are trained in Chinese arts. And from them, all the different branches. My feeling is what's going to happen is organizations are going to start using this to do the same thing. They will be involved in one group. They'll branch off and start their own group. Just like networking groups, we're making this available now to organizations. We started out where this was simply something that we wanted to offer to help networking group managers manage their network. And now it's really morphed into something that is just so much larger than anything we dreamed of. It's going to be for organizations. It's going to be for your Chamber of Commerces. There's other programs out there for Chamber of Commerces, but I've never met anybody that uses a mobile app regularly on them because they're not trained properly or they're just not very effective. And I think we're going to open a lot of avenues through that. So if you can think of a group, whether it's a card club, hiking group, where you're putting together the excursions and so forth, this app can help you. And not only can it help you, it can help you monetize it, whether you want to just do an annual membership or you want to do it monthly, you can do that. And then you can find your ways to monetize it outside of that. So it's maybe $5 a month to be a part of your hiking group. Okay, that's $60 a year, no big deal. But then you make that's your passion. You love that. So you make your money also off of setting up networks and also by doing excursions and getting some commission off that, getting commission off the lodging, getting commission off of shopping that they may do and so forth. So this is kind of the entrepreneur's dream in that I could tell you hundreds of businesses that could be started by just using this app. So appreciate your time. Let me talk about that.
No, of course, Bill. Honestly, you've got my mind running a million miles a minute. Listeners, Bill just essentially handed you for free here on the air in real time, multiple business ideas and a business model that can work for you, whether you want to supplement or complement the revenue streams that your business already has, or if you've been looking for an excuse to start your business. Bill laid it all out right here for you, and you already know the drill. We are dropping that link. It's super easy. Startanetwork.com. That's startanetwork.com. You'll find that link down below wherever it is that you're tuning in, as well as Bill's already mentioned during our conversation here today. There's some goodies for you on his business website. So don't be shy, startanetwork.com. And Bill, on behalf of myself and all the listeners around the world, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing all of this with us here today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on your show, and you're an excellent interviewer.